With the holiday season upon us, for this episode of Film Pulse Plays, I decided to take a look at a classic film starring Macaulay Culkin. That's right, folks, we're talking about The Pagemaster. This live-action animated hybrid stars Kevin McAllister as Richie, not the spoiled billionaire, but the introverted scaredy cat with the Harry Potter glasses. In order to get him out into the world, Ed Begley Jr. tells him to go down to Gutman's hardware store and buy a pound of these.
Go down to Gutman's hardware store, buy a pound of these.
But Dad...
Son, you can't live your life based on statistics. You've got to take some chances. Now, come on, buddy. You can do this.
Of course, the journey proves to be a perilous one that begins with bratty kids making fun of him, including one with a sweet rat tail, and a freak storm that rolls in, ending in a horrific bike crash. Rich seeks refuge in an ominous library that's oddly closed in the middle of the day, and there he meets the equally ominous Christopher Lloyd, who does his best at traumatizing the boy.
Evil demons, wretched monsters, haunted houses, graveyards. Yes, it's horror for you, boy.
After slipping and falling while exploring the library, Rich wakes up to find he's being attacked by animation, which eventually devours him, transforming him into a cartoon version of himself.
I'm a cartoon!
Eventually, he meets up with a few books. A sassy pirate, voiced by Patrick Stewart, a sassy fairy, voiced by Whoopi Goldberg,
Honey, that's what they all say.
I heard that!
and a dumb yet equally sassy Igor.
I'm sorry.
You mustn't judge a book by its cover. Look, he's smiling.
That's a smile?
Rich discovers that he must travel through the world of literature in order to get back home to his disappointed parents, and thus begins the long, arduous, and dreadfully boring journey of the Pagemaster.
This Thanksgiving, take your family to a world beyond imagination. The Pagemaster.
The film was released in 1994 at the height of Macaulay Culkin's popularity. However, even his star power couldn't save this one from extremely diminishing returns. The film's budget was an estimated $27 million, and it only grossed $12 million domestically. So how do the video game versions of this stinker stack up? Pretty much exactly how you would expect.
You become the hero as you battle a bunch of nasty enemies, including Long John Silver and his band of pirates, Frankenstein's giant fist, the big bad wolf, and a disgusting slimy octopus. But you have tons of amazing secret weapons and tricks to crush your opponents with, including a pirate sword, a bag of horrible eyeballs, a magic shield, sticky green slime, hidden books, and enchanted dust. The Pagemaster video game is available on Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, and Gameboy formats.
Alright, now here we have the Pagemaster for the SNES. This is a fairly straightforward platformer where you play as Rich on his quest through the three worlds featured in the movie. You begin in Horror World with the first level being titled The Torture Chamber. The Torture Chamber. That's what it's called. So you basically just run around collecting things, trying to avoid enemies and get to the exit. The big problem is there's no rhyme or reason what you can and cannot jump on, so I learned very quickly to just avoid everything like the plague and just not even try to defeat any of the enemies that I was coming across. This is also a brutally difficult game too, and unless you have these magic sneakers, one hit kills you. Although the graphics and animation are nice, the controls are absolutely terrible, and the hit detection is even worse. So once you make it through, you'll find that you can choose one of two different levels to go to next. The one I chose is called That's the Spirit. That's the Spirit. That's. I guess when they decided to make a story about reading, they weren't caring too much about grammar. So this level is the exact same as the first level, it's just a little bit harder. You get to the end, you hop into another book, and you do the same thing about 7 or 8 more times before you defeat the final boss, and then you get into a mini game where you hop into a book and you have to fly around collecting things. This is a nice reprieve from the rest of the levels you just had to get through, but don't even ask me how to control this thing, it just seems to have a mind of its own. Much like the movie, you then need to get rich through Adventure World, which has a pirate theme, and then the final world is called Fantasy World, which has a fairy tale theme. All these levels are the exact same as the ones previous to it, and they're all pretty boring and extremely difficult. The Pagemaster for the Sega Genesis is basically the exact same, however there's no password option, so you have to start from the beginning every single time you reset the system. The foreground objects have been removed, and those terrible level titles aren't in here either. Instead of starting in the torture chamber, it just says Game On for each level. Also, and this is just something weird that I noticed, in the Super Nintendo version when you get Game Over, it starts the count at 11, whereas on the Genesis it starts at 10. I don't know what the deal is with that. The minigames between worlds aren't present in this one either, so I guess if you had to play one, it would be the Super Nintendo version? Now you may be thinking, hey, what about the Pagemaster for Game Boy? Well, strap in because this is far worse than the other two. The first level is an auto-scroller that wants to kill you at every possible moment, sometimes by throwing enemies at you, sometimes just by making you fall into oblivion. Thankfully, this level can be skipped, however the alternative is just another platforming level that will make you rip your hair out. And that's basically all I can say about the Pagemaster for the Game Boy. Finally, we have the Pagemaster for the PC, and this one is not a boring, tedious platformer, it's a boring and tedious point-and-click adventure. Truthfully, I didn't have much of a problem with this one. The graphics and animation are quite good, and although it doesn't feature the original cast, it's all voice acted and acts as something of a sequel to the movie, with Richard heading back into the book world in order to stop Jekyll and Hyde from stealing the Pagemaster book or something like that.
This is definitely not good. Did you know that 3% of accidents occur in poorly lighted areas?
Accidents? Honey, if we don't get that book back from Hyde, we're all going to be obituaries.
It's not terrible, just not interesting. I will say I used to love the Sierra point-and-click adventures when I was a kid, so if I did have this one, I probably would have played it. And there you have it, that's the Pagemaster. Instead of watching this movie or playing the games, I would suggest taking its message to heart and go out and get some books from the local library and then do a radical bike jump on the way home. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more episodes in this series. And for all your page mastering needs, head over to filmpulse.net.
I'm ready to go home now.